Welcome to I Just Don't Know, a podcast where we try to learn something new, challenge my opinions, and hope to make the misinformed informed. I can openly say I've spoken when I did not need to, been unnecessarily controversial, and shared my misinformed opinion, thinking it was not. My name is Rob Clelo, and in this podcast I discuss topics, events, emotions, and stories that at the time I thought I knew, but in fact, I just don't know. Colourful outfits, the deep bass of huge speakers, day drinking, crowds of people filling fields and grassy banks, flip-flop killing thick mud, expensive pints in paper cups, but above all the intense excitement of sharing and enjoying your favourite music with your friends and thousands of people around you. The British do it well, possibly the best in the world. I'm of course talking about festivals. So this episode is inspired by my first day festival of this summer, 2022. I was lucky to go to live at Leeds, my first time to Leeds in quite a while. It was a proper day festival, and it has inspired me to think about some of the assumptions and thoughts I've had around festivals and how they've changed since I first went to one, I think properly back in 2015, and then again in 2017 and then 2018, but I was missing the feeling of festivals very much in sort of the latter stages of lockdown and the fear that it'll be a very long time until those festivals come back. And I feel 2021 was a relief and everyone was in great form, but it was a unique summer, a summer of redemption, of time missed. But now as we go into this summer, it's very exciting to see so many festivals going ahead, day festivals, normal festivals. But overall, I wanted to just quickly talk about some of the things I've discovered, something I discovered about myself, about music, about how to enjoy a festival differently to when you first go, if you're a first timer or you've never been to one, and especially in British festivals. I think it's different from what you hear and see in other countries. There is something special about a British festival that I wanted to share, and it's clear that my assumption here is I can never know what to expect when I go to a festival. I'm always surprised. I always discover something new. I always have an absolutely fantastic time. That's perhaps the one thing I can assume that will happen. But overall, I can say that my assumption of what a festival looks like and what it should be is completely wrong, because every festival has its own character and own right, and that's what I'm going to explore going forward and show that don't you dare assume that all festivals are the same, because they are all epic, and I'm so excited to share some of the things I discovered last week. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, and this the biggest thing I've discovered and what I love about festivals, and almost consistently it has happened at a time when I didn't expect it, and that is discovering music or artists that you weren't necessarily there to see. You weren't necessarily supposed to be in that tent, that stage, but you stumble across them and you find them. They just lift you to that level of excitement. You enjoy yourself. You're impressed by their production. You don't even know what they're called until after, and they can just really blow you away and impress you. And that is exactly what happened in Leeds week when I discovered, and I was, to be fair, was suggested to see them by the group that I was with, and I thank them for that. But this is Confidence Man, and if you've not heard of Confidence Man, it is a fantastic. I think 4 of them, you could say, but there's 2 front man and front woman. It is upbeat disco, great lyrics, great writing, great just get you going music. It is just fantastic, and they are perhaps on the slightly stranger side of the spectrum of production and what they look like, but they definitely are fun, and they were absolutely amazing. Very good live, great production, good songs, and I can't get enough of them. They really get the party going, get you sort of dancing along to this sort of crazy lyrics that they do. They have sort of change of outfits, and in between that they have a couple of lyrical songs where the DJ and the drummer, who are dressed as Beehive men pretty much, but it's all in black, so you don't know who they are. It's all very strange, but they do some non-lyrics songs that are very upbeat as well. So it's a bit of a house party mixed with sort of a bit of fun singing. So do check them out. Do listen to them. They are absolutely incredible. I think they are supporting Noel Gallagher a little bit on his tour, and they've got loads of dates. And honestly, they are my favourite discovery from this recent day festival. It was absolutely amazing, and I think back to some of the other sort of festivals in the past that I just stumbled across people that were just so good. I think go to one of my first ones was 2015, and I was a bit sort of ignorant to the whole sort of house dancey sort of intense 90s scene, and I know it's bad, but I never really have heard of the Chemical Brothers. I'd heard of My Chemical Romance because that came out when I was a teenager, but the Chemical Brothers, I not really heard of them, but we went anyway because they were the headliners, and they were pretty incredible. Their production was one of a kind. It's highly professional. You can see how they are two very experienced guys. They know exactly what they're doing. I think it's two guys, but that's definitely one of note that I remember. I remember stumbling across the Chuckle Brothers, actually. Well, obviously there's only one now, but they were in a tent. They did like a 15-minute set, and that was probably one of the funnest times. I remember discovering a female artist called Shura that I never heard of, and she was very impressive live, very great voice. So there's just so many, and then I'm thinking back to another incident where you just sort of go into a tent, see who you discover. It's highly recommended on any festival, but to actually actively do it and get lucky where you find someone that really gets you going, impresses, and it's memorable, that's pretty special. I do remember once when at a rainy festival we went to and discovered I think it's the big New York brass band tent, and they were on every night, I think, but because it was quite a small tent, it was actually quite warm in there because the weather wasn't great, and it was just so much fun. It's all about finding those moments to enjoy and really realize you're having a great time, and you don't need to be drunk, you don't need to be having the best. It doesn't need to be the perfect weather necessarily. You find it, and you don't even have to be with loads and loads of people, with all your friends. You can just be with a few friends or someone you've just met, or strangers around you. It's all about that sort of acceptance that you're there just to live life to the full in a sense of just joy and enjoyment, and dance your heart out, not have any inhibitions. And that's they're your moments that you work towards, and people pay a lot of money to try and get those moments. People sacrifice a lot to try and get those moments, and no matter what people say, you need to enjoy those moments and just let loose and be free, to just try to remember them the best you can, because they're pretty special. And what heightens them and what perhaps opens the door to these moments is discovering music, discovering artists that are just impressive and good, and you didn't know that was going to happen. So that's Confidence Man. Very recommend them. Play them in your pre-drinks, and it'll get everyone going, I bet you. So there's a couple of other artists at Leeds that were quite cool. That, in particularly, Arlo Parks was pretty cool. I'm not saying I'm a huge fan. I don't really listen to her music before. I've definitely added a few songs to it now. But oh my god, the crowd went crazy. Everyone was obsessed with Arlo Parks. They were so set on watching them. I was with a few people who were close to tears just listening to it, and were very emotional around it. And I just stood there just impressed with their commitment to this artist that is fairly new. And I wouldn't say the music is that intense. It's not sort of super sad. It's got a beat, and it's good fun mixed with some very impressive lyrics. But fair play to them. They really enjoyed it. So I felt privileged to be there and see not just them, but the people around us were very intensely appreciating that gig, and I think she absolutely smashed it. So Arlo Parks was pretty darn cool, and I definitely recommend as well. A band that I discovered a couple of years ago, thanks to my sort of new connections up north in Cumbria, is Sports Team. Hopefully some of you have heard of it. They're pretty good fun. They've got a great voice, great sort of sound that is very indie. It's very sort of great sort of fun lyrics, a bit of fun mixed with sort of sharpness and quick wit, and they were pretty darn cool. They played all my favourites, to be fair. It helps that they've got a couple of albums, but they're not too long. In particular, they started with my favourite, which is the M5. They're the only band I know that have written a song about a motorway, so that's a highway if you're in the US. But yeah, the M5 is a great song. Recommend it. Music video is even funnier. So definitely go check them out. And then the last one I wanted to sort of someone I didn't really know about, but was recommended, and we went by Kirsty. She was like, we have to go see Dreamwife, and I'm like, okay, we can go see Dreamwife. I'm curious to see what they all about and what their sound is, and they were, let's just say, they were intense. It was a lead singer, blonde girl, sort of slick back hair, I think a white outfit, white dress of some sort, and she just went absolutely mad, and the way she stared down the crowd, got everyone going. It wasn't a big crowd, unfortunately. Would have been better if there's perhaps more fans there, but their production was pretty good. And I think it was an all female band, really rocking it hard, and some pretty abrasive and intense and mad lyrics that were provocative, let's say. And I enjoyed it. They were very impressive, and she was really sort of going with the participation and getting involved with the crowd at the front. And she had like a fake dollar bill gun at one point. It was all good fun. Not someone I'd necessarily listen to on Spotify or on the as I'm sort of walking to work or something like that, but definitely someone I'd see live, because they're a lot of fun, and something different. So Dreamwife, they were great. Then there was a few other sort of more well-known bands that I was actually a little bit disappointed. I don't really know them super well, as in like I don't listen to them all the time, but Pigeon Detectives and Bombay Bicycle Club, didn't blow me away, but I think they're not as good as live as perhaps they used to be, or their songs don't quite match. But I don't know. It's not me to judge. I'm no expert. But there was a few others that were quite cool to check out. So like Cassia and Easy Life, they were someone I was introduced to by Kirsty as well. They were pretty impressive, and like a really good sound that could be right for you. But no, I really enjoyed it. A great mini festival that everything was quite close together. It wasn't super busy, and I would recommend anyone to go. And the weather's sort of held up. It's on a bit of a hill, which makes it a bit windy, but it adds a bit of dynamic to it. You can look down on the main stage. You have to walk up to one of the big tents, but it adds a bit of character to that festival. Remind me a little bit of the new site for Festival that I went to back in 2017 when it moved off the Isle of Wight. Sort of a bit of a hill, quite close together. Not as good as. It's different from what it was when it was on the Isle of Wight. Festival was very spread out back then. They had the big sort of ship thing where it was like the house area, if you've ever been, and they've got two main stages, and then they had the Bombay house Shangri-La house sort of tent as well. But that was because that was so close to everything else. It sort of lost its isolated, unique sound because it was mixed in with everything else in the new site. So. But then that's what they had to do. They were struggling, I believe. I don't know exactly. I think the unfortunate thing with that festival in 2017 was the weather was so bad. Everyone left on that Sunday night. It got sort of called off, and it was a shame. It was a shame, really. But the weather really was bad. It was so muddy. But it's just unlucky. But it's always a risk in September. I'm really hoping that the weather stays good. for everywhere I go going forward. You just have to really cross your fingers. But then that brings in the sort of the topic of what do people prefer? A big, large festival like Glastonbury for 3-4 days. Have you got the stamina, the endurance? Are you willing to camp? Is that something you do? And the next thing is, or do you prefer more of a small festival like you've got in London? You've got lots of day festival options, and you have these little festivals in towns and other cities as well. Nowadays, it's becoming a bit more affordable to set up all the equipment. I think they obviously have to use it for multiple different types of festivals to get their money, but there's definitely more and more. There's loads of day festivals in London, in Brockwell Park, Finsbury Park, Gunnersbury Park. I think Latitude used to be there. Finsbury Park's a new setup. Obviously Hyde Park, they do it in Wembley Stadium. They do things in they've done things in Clapham Common in the past with SW4, but they're not doing it this year, I don't think. Although I wouldn't recommend doing the festivals at Clapham Common too, sort of relying too much on those, because you get no signal there for some reason. It's mad and busy because it's obviously very central, attracts that sort of area, that southwest, and sort of younger audience that it does make it a bit of a crazy day. But I've had a few good times there. But it is a bit annoying with the no signal thing, for me anyway, whatever network you guys are on. But then Brockwell Park is pretty cool because it's on a hill, so you definitely get signal, you definitely get a good view. It can just get a bit cold if the weather's not great. Really easy to get to as well, a little bit out of the way from the tube, so you don't. So it's not quite as mad and busy as perhaps the others. Gunnersbury Park, if you've ever been, is when I went, they actually closed the tube early. I managed to get the last one, but then hundreds and hundreds of people who were watching Tame Impala, I believe, weren't able to get home, which was a shame. That's a bit of a shocker, really. But that was a while ago. Things have changed, obviously, and this is what I wanted to talk about, really. And I'm curious to see what happens going forward this summer. As I said earlier, last summer it was a bit of a relief. It was a summer of redemption. I went to Carnival, which was a slightly different themed day at Clapham Common. I went to one at Brockwell Park that was sort of rocky, and it was just experiment. And then Field Day, which is more housey and dance, and that's obviously probably the more popular type of music these days, sort of DJs and house music. That's great, and I do love that. It's either off or on. It's very intense, so it's not necessarily something you can listen to every day, I think, but that's everyone's preference, and everyone's different, so that's fair enough. But what you do need for those sort of festivals is space, because you can't have things too close to each other, otherwise it all merges into one. It's all about the production and the scale of the sound. So I can get that it's pretty tricky to really nail it with that type of music. There's something sort of a bit more simplistic and easier when it comes to just a band and some amps and a speaker system. You can create something bit easier, but it's maybe not quite as impressive without the big sort of expensive equipment that I don't really know much about, but would love to learn more about when it comes to the life of a DJ and a sound engineer in the festival scene. But overall, what I'm excited to see is this year is this bit settling down of the festival scene. People not worrying about certain things. There's that act of sort of normality, enjoyment, and getting back to that feeling of that friendliness of you're at a festival, you talk to anyone, you're almost like living in the countryside, or you're from another country where everyone is very friendly to each other. Couldn't name a country where that happens necessarily off the top of my head. I don't want to pick, but you know what I mean, where you go to a place where you're perhaps away on a camp, or you're away on a resort, or in a hotel, or you're in a nice smaller town in France or Spain or something, or wherever, or campsite, and everyone is friendly to you. Everyone talks to everyone to try and see if they're interesting or curious about what they want to do. They listen, and they're not doing it just for the sake of it. And it's a lovely relief And the only areas and times you really get that quite strongly is in festivals in the UK. And if you live in like a village or a town, you sort of do get that, but it's with perhaps a different demographic that are at a point where they realise that's a nicer way of living, and that's fine, although they still are a bit apprehensive when things go a little bit out of the lines, out of the margins, which I completely understand. Sort of that sort of conservative war protecting the safety that they've created. But in a festival, before I go off on a tangent, a festival creates this sort of friendliness, that connection between people where you just accept that you're all the same, and you're all trying to just navigate life. You're all trying to have a good time. You don't want to harm anyone as a result of that, but you also don't want to be harmed or be inconvenienced. And while there are obviously times you have to be smart and protect yourself in festivals and not get yourself in compromising positions and don't lose things and forget things or be exposed to people taking stuff or doing sort of bad ideas, fundamentally, and 99% of the time you can stand there and really enjoy things with complete strangers. And I'm going to end it on what happened at a gig, actually, by one of my favourite bands, Young the Giant. Highly recommend to listen to them and follow their music that they started over 10 years ago. And I don't think they don't do that much at the moment. But Young the Giant are an amazing band. And when I was so grateful I managed to see them live just before lockdown in the fall of 2019, just before a song, they said, please, to everyone, to the crowd, let's look to someone to the left or right, and just remember you're all in the same boat here. You're all here trying to have a good time. Say hello, enjoy yourself. You're going to be standing there for another hour next to each other. Don't be strangers. No, ask their name, ask where they're from, ask what their favourite song is that they're looking forward to listening to. Ask why they're there. Are they on their own? Are they with their family? Are they with their girlfriend? Or are they with their boyfriend? Because we're all here. And the way he delivered it was better than what I just said there. But it was so nice because it basically meant everyone was friends with everyone for that short period. Everyone looked at each other not with sort of concern or fear of who that person is and what their intentions are. It was, no, I'm looking to my left, there's David with his wife Mary and their 2 kids, and I look to my right and there's Sam and James and who were there on their second date, and in front of them you knew everything and they knew me, and that's where those sort of moments, yes, they can happen at gigs for an hour or so, but at festivals, when that happens, you find out for your friends with people to the tent next to you. And this happened when I was in 2017, when I worked at one and I didn't know many people at all. And you just make friends with people naturally, and you build that trust, and you have to build that trust and that friendliness, that openness of other people, not judging, not assuming anything, allowing people to be who they want to be and free to talk to sort of anyone, to try and build their own sort of network of people in that short time, that short sort of moment in time in that festival, to feel like they can know everyone and have a good time and go back to those moments that I was talking about earlier of just pure joy and being and letting go. That is what is amazing, and that is why I love festivals, and everyone should go to a festival and embrace everything that each one offers, and realise that just because you've been to one or you didn't like another, each one is unique, and you can create a unique experience at every festival. And I wish everyone will try and do that. So good luck with that. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to recording another episode soon.